Hello and welcome to another conversation about conversations. I am your co-host Jacob Kubrak. With me, as always, is the man, the myth, the author, the podcaster, the legend of conversations about conversations, Ivan Farber, our lady legend, Jules Swisher, and today, a very special guest, a management and relationship management legend, Sam Galloway.
Thanks, Jacob. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me, Ivan. Love the legend status that you've acquired through your book and podcast here. So thank you guys.
Everyone's a legend who comes on the show. Jacob is a legend maker.
We do our best. We do our best. But another exciting Sunday with some exciting things to talk about and awesome guests. Let's hear what's been going on from everybody. Jules?
Yeah, well, it's 12 degrees here this morning. So it is cold and I am so excited. We got our first snow last night. So I'm on cloud 9 over here. I can't wait for ski season. That's all I care about. You know, we can talk about business if you'd like, but I would also be really down to spend the next hour talking about skiing. So
yeah, this is the skiing version of the show.
It's that time of the year.
Jules, I don't know if you can see this photo in the background, but that is Mount Adams taken from Mount St. Helens on a backcountry ski trip that I did. So I would love to talk about skiing for the next hour, and we can ditch the whole conversations thing.
Perfect. Sam, okay, I don't need to know anything else about you. I like you. We're good. All right.
There you go.
So on Friday, we were supposed to have an inspection of our house that we have made an offer on. We made the offer last week. It's a big move. We would go from being city slickers to country western in the mountain. And we got there early because that's the kind of people we are. It took my wife an hour to get there. Like, this new house is not only a half an hour like to my current place of work, but it's another half hour from there. So I left work early. I took off the afternoon. We meet at 3:30. That's when the inspector and the realtor was supposed to be there. And we're waiting and we're waiting. And then we get a text. And the text says, "Call me before you go." Like, call me before you go. We're already there. The realtor says, pulls up, we roll down the window. And he says, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He had not hit send on a text to the other realtor. And so the other realtor didn't let the people know that we were coming with an inspector. And so he canceled the inspector because the house was full of kids and it wouldn't have been fair. Now, why do I tell this story? Well, the theme for this episode is managing relationships across organizations. And there couldn't be a better example of a mismanagement of relationships across organizations. In our pre-interview, Sam and I discussed the responsibility that he has for managing vendor relationships with his company. And I think there's a really important aspect to thinking about managing relationships across different organizations. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Absolutely. I'm thankful that you've done these podcasts a number of times and can keep us on track, because I was ready to go on skiing and you looped us right back in. So thank you. But yeah, it certainly provides some, additional kind of analysis and difficulties in managing relationships across organizations. And it's not easy within your organization. So once you move to kind of outside your own walls, it just kind of amplifies all the same issues that you guys talk about each week within your organization,
Well, let's explore that. So the question I'm going to put on the table is, what is different about managing across organizations versus just within your own organization?
I think in my experience, you just don't have as much wiggle room, and you can't, go visit the pod of the people you're working with to kind of right the ship when things drift off track, right? So if you're having a project internally that's starting to go awry, or you just want to check in, or you come out of the meeting and it was a little hot, right? And you're trying to find level heads, you can just take someone out to lunch and have a chat about it and kind of level set. But when you're working with folks outside of your organization, you only have so much time to have those conversations. And so you need to be a little bit more pragmatic about the time that you're spending together and keeping the focus really aligned with the task at hand, right? That's what I think there.
Do you have any stories of when that kind of went awry?
Yeah, I certainly do. I think internally, we've got an entrepreneurial culture, if you will. And so a lot of great ideas are kicked around all the time. And it just may not make sense from a timing or from a capacity perspective to implement those great ideas right now. So it's not that the idea is flawed, it just doesn't meet the current framework. And so I think you see people getting emotionally invested in their idea that's absolutely the right one. It's just not the right time. And so working through that, and maybe I'm more guilty of that than anyone else. And so I know my management team has been good about saying, let's plug that in Q1 of 2021. It just doesn't fit right now, right? But those I think are the tough ones because it's the right thing to do. It just isn't getting the traction right now.
Jules, how about you? What do you see as different in managing across organizations?
The main thing that I have in my experience is different like motivations, intentions, and goals across experiences. And I know that this probably differs depending on the industry that you're in, but I've noticed a lot of the times, where my goal might be one thing, their goal is another thing. And so their motivation to assist you in that, to help you with that, to comply with what you're asking, sometimes isn't all the way there unless it directly benefits them. So that is definitely one challenge. And then the other challenge is difference in like training. So for me, my vendors or like my other organizations that I work with are like doctors, hospital systems, other kind of outside organizations, and managing those, each one comes with their own differences of personalities and people, and constantly trying to keep a pulse on where they're at, what they're doing, how they feel about how things are going, and then dealing with the fact that they don't have any time to really like dive in with you. So kind of like what Sam was saying, like you have to manage your time with them really well because you only have so much of it. And just dealing with the fact that like they are completely independently operating and I am blind to what is going on their side, processes, all of that, I'm just totally blind to. And I have to keep reminding them of that because I think they just assume sometimes that I like know what's going on and I don't. So I would say that those are some of the kind of main problems that I have in terms of like managing across organizations.
I like what you said about not knowing. It's so common across organizations. And I'm really guilty about making assumptions that people know everything about a project that I know. Yeah. Or like, let's just get into it from where we left off. And what's been really helpful to me is to kind of role play as the neophyte in this scenario and say, okay, would I be able to just jump in here and pick it up based on how I'm describing it now? Or do I need to take a couple steps back, spend the first 5 minutes of the meeting level setting on what we've done to get to this point, and then move forward from there? So yeah, that making assumptions that everybody's at the knowledge level you are, I am so guilty of that.
Same.
I have a story to tell of when I was a wee young lad. I was responsible for managing a relationship with a vendor. And they had like this computer model that would create these great plans, and they would print it out and put it in a nice folder, and they'd bring it over to me from another building, and I'd package it up and send it. And the problem that I had was a big lack of awareness of just the dynamics at this other organization. So there'd be a problem. I'd call up. I'd say, can I speak to David? Can I speak to Ron? And the receptionist, her name was Maria, I never asked Maria anything about herself other than, is Ron available? Is David available? So later on, I was talking with my manager and I said, I don't think Maria likes me. I don't think she likes me. And I said, I don't know what to do. Do you have any advice? And she said, you don't understand who Maria is. Maria is Ron's wife. But this is true of any gatekeeper. Like when we just run past the gatekeeper and like almost like they're not visible, they're invisible, we alienate them. So that's something I've had to really learn was, you know, the boss's wife could be the receptionist.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason people do business with you 90% of the time is because of you, right? So I know in my current role, actually, I came in to interview and my manager now alerted me to this after the fact. But when somehow senior management got in discussion with the front desk woman and she made a comment, I bet you guys are going to hire that guy you interviewed this morning. And I bet that commentary played a huge role in me getting hired for this current position. And it was just because we were able to connect, and I don't even remember what it was on, but we spent 5-10 minutes in the lobby just chit chatting, you know, and built a relationship there that ultimately she's left the firm and now lives up in northern Michigan doing some really cool stuff with dog sledding, but that's neither here nor there. But just to say that we've maintained a relationship and it goes a long way.
No, that's there. Tell us more about the dog sledding.
Yeah, so I knew nothing about this, but they train all the time. So it's up in northern Michigan, and if you've been up there, there's snowmobiling trails, and it's the whole state is set up for winter activities. But what you don't think about is, okay, you've got all these dogs through the summer. What are they going to do with them then? And so they rig up their four-wheeler, throw it in neutral, and train the dogs all summer too. And they've got a lot of dogs, so they got their hands full out there.
I'll tell you why I wanted to know about the dog sledding. Because that's cross-organizational management.
Yeah.
The dogs have their own organization. You've got to organize the dogs.
I don't think it's easy. I mean, they I think very frequently are quite literally pulling in different directions. And yeah, she talks about the difficulties they have with, keeping them in line. And, they have, kind of like horses where you hear they have, like a personality to them, and just certain days they're on or off. And yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
Jacob, what about you? What do you think the issues are with regard to managing a cross organization that you've come up against?
So do kids qualify as cross organizations?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So they're a lot like dogs and horses and everything else. There a lot of times they're pulling in different ways, and you got to get back in line. But just being respectful of other, whatever it is, culture of an organization, or whatever their processes are and things like that, and researching as much as you can right before you kind of deal with someone, so you kind of understand where they're coming from or what their history is about and things like that. And yeah, kind of just asking good questions, having good conversations, like Sam kind of mentioned there.
Jacob, are your kids personality wise like you, or are they different?
How personality wise, I think they're both athletes, so I mean we get a lot of joy out of playing sports and just being active. But I don't know. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked that. I really couldn't describe the personality of my kids. They're just wild, and like any other 10 and 8-year-old.
Yeah. The only reason I bring it up, we had a personality test that we did through our firm, and we had a guy come in to train us on how to interpret the results. And he shared a story of he was parenting his kids as if they were him. He's like, these are my kids. They're just an extension of me, so I'll treat. He's a very type A, like just, kind of take ownership and, don't discuss your feelings and just, work hard and get it done kind of guy. And his kids are more of like the emotional side when they took this personality test. And he said for him, it just like completely made him unpackage all of these assumptions about how he approaches kids. So I was just curious if, from a parenting standpoint, if that's more common than I'm, taking appreciation for without.
Yeah, no, we had, I've been through one of those, and those are helpful, right? Because you can kind of, adjust, especially in sales, your process to what people you're talking about, right? Especially if you're calling, in other states and other territories, whatever it may be. And so I agree with a lot of that, but I don't think my kids really have my personality. I think the only part might be the athletics of it. But I don't know. I guess we should, if we could find one of those tests, we should take it and see what comes out.
Maybe that's a blessing.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm thinking, Jacob, that not very many people have your personality at all.
I mean, personality all comes from, character and what you've been through, right? I mean, so it's a long journey, and it's been a great one, and I'm just blessed. And
Jacob, do you ever feel outnumbered?
no.
No.
By kids, you mean?
Yeah, by your kids.
No, because I got my wife. So as long as you're not on a penalty kill where it's just 2-on-2, you're good. But once the kids outnumber the parents, that's when you're in trouble.
When they're on the power play.
When they're on the power play, yeah.
Jacob's kids on the power play.
Yeah, and it's 24 hours a day. I couldn't deal with that. Yeah, we're good. We got the right mix.
So in terms of the problems that we see in managing cross organization, that should lead us to the solutions, right? So we see problem in understanding. There's a bandwidth issue, like we may not have as much time with them as we have in our own organization. There may be a cultural mismatch. And so those are all the things that lead to the solutions here. I thought of 5 different ways to approach managing across organization. But before I present my 5 secrets, I want to know your secrets. So we'll start with you, Sam. What are your secrets when it comes to managing the relationships that you have to manage across organizations?
Yeah, it sounds like you have a little bit more prepared and crisp answer here, but I'll do my best. So
that's what Ivan does. He sends out the email. He's already ready, and then he hopes that you read it and you show up.
I should have got both. Like, here's my 3 things. No, I think the number one thing is just asking for help. That's the secret for me. People are people. I mean, as silly as that sounds, making it human, empathizing and just asking for help. People love to help other people. And I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for help. I remember I called one of my favorite mentors from college, and I was running through this problem and I explained it all. And at the end I said, I just don't know how to ask for help in this scenario. And he said, have you thought about asking for help in this scenario? And it's just, I mean, that sounds stupid saying it back, but I really hadn't. I had created this whole scenario in my head and hadn't thought to just reach out directly and say, hey, I need help here. And so I think when push comes to shove, just asking for help. And then when they help you, being truly appreciative and grateful for the help that they're providing, because they're doing a lot of work on your behalf and making your life a lot easier. So those would be my secrets.
It's a good question.
Well, what's great about that, Sam, is instead of assuming that they're going to help you or that they think they should help you, you just come right out and make a specific request. I need your help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just lay it on the table and people love to help you. I mean, more times than not, it's uncomfortable to say no.
People like to see their advice work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think recognizing them for that advice or their help or whatever, that goes a long way too. When somebody does something and then it's just open-ended, most people go on, they're not going to hold on to it. But when you get that closing email, it says, "Thank you for your help on this. I appreciate it." Just a small note. It just closes the whole thing off. In your mind, you can move on to the next thing, knowing, hey, I liked working with that person.
My first mentor taught me you can never overthank or over communicate.
Or over apologize, in my opinion. Say sorry for everything.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Jules, I'd like to get your opinion. What secrets do you have in managing relationships across organizations?
Yeah, so my number one thing that I do is identify who my people are in that organization. So that starts with knowing who every single person is and getting to know them, know what they do, how they help the firm, and understanding their role within it and understanding their buy-in to what I'm doing. And within every single one of my vendors, or whatever you would call them, cross-organizational allies, I think sounds nice. Within every single one of those, I've identified like two to three people who I can reliably count on and hit them up about anything. And I know that they've got me and got my back on that. And that's where the relationship building and rapport comes in really strong. So I make sure that I'm not always just hitting them up for help on something. But I do love what you said about that, Sam, just straight up saying, hey, I could really use some help on this. Like cues people like, oh, this person is asking for my help. Okay. I'm like, oftentimes they're not quite sure what you're asking for. They feel like it's a burden. So just by saying, hey, like I could really use your help on this, that seems to open people up. But I make sure that with my 2 or 3 people within every organization that I'm also messaging them, calling, whatever, emailing them, and making sure that they're doing good, that there's nothing that they need from me, that, that I'm checking in with them and continuing to build that rapport. Cause now I'm on the level of rapport where I can like text my 2 or 3 people, like, what's up, sis? How you doing? How's your day going? And that's always a good sign. So that's what I've been doing, and like making sure that I'm laughing with them and joking with them and having a good time with them. And then also knowing like reliably, I've always got I call them my champions. They're like my people. They're the ones that I can count on, whatever it is that I'm trying to deal with or solve or whatever. I know I can hit up like these 2 or 3 people reliably. So that's probably my number one secret.
Right, Jules, you have friends and pals in the right places.
I do. And I call them my friend. Back when I worked in financial services, it was funny. Everybody used to give me a bunch of grief about how I would always answer the phone and say, well, howdy, my friend, how you doing? And it's funny because I do that now. I always say, well, hey there, friend, and like call them my friend. And it seems to open them up a little bit, because if you just say that they're your friend, they're like, I mean, it's kind of rude to say, no, I'm not your friend. Like, I don't like you. You're annoying. So I just say like, hey, friend, howdy, friend, like something like that. And it seems to just like make them realize that they're more to me than just like a coworker or anything else, that I care about them on a friend level. And so I like doing that. It might be off-putting to some people, but hey.
And Sam, you may not know this, but Jules has her own podcast in her own right called the Jules Edit. And I love the way you start that one. Sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's pal, but it's often, hello there, neighbor.
Neighbor. Yep.
And
Cool.
in this world of social media, and the world is really small, I mean, in essence, everybody is our virtual neighbor. They're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, what's your secret to managing relationships?
How much time we got here?
How about your kids? What's your best secret for managing the relationship with your kids?
So I'm sorry. I'm gonna start off with apologizing. No, I'm going to talk about business a little bit first and then get into the kid part of it. Business wise, do your research, be humble, be grateful, understand where the people are coming from. Those are kind of the biggest ones. In regards to kids, you can't really do research or or anything like that. But be humble as well. Just understand that they're kids. They're not going to think the same way you are, and a lot of times we just need to let them be kids. But yeah, be respectful and all that good stuff, and be grateful along the way as well.
Just seeing you talking, it gives me like a visceral reaction to also have to comment and say, to just smile. I think about our interactions, Jacob,
Yeah.
professionally, and, not always positive conversations, sometimes some difficult clients or, whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And you just always have a smile and you're laughing, and it's just, okay, next. And that kind of attitude
Life's
goes a
too
long way.
short. I appreciate that. Yeah, and a lot of those times is probably me messing something up, but I appreciate that as well. And yeah, keep smiling. That's a great one. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Ivan?
All right, here's my I'm adding a secret to the 5
Five.
secrets. It's going to be 6 secrets. And they're things that have really already been said, but I think it's good to kind of summarize this episode. Number
Are they
1,
in the book?
well, the book's coming. That's number 6. Number 1, take the time to build rapport. Like, it goes a long way to that other department when I pick up the phone and say, hey, before we do work together, how long have you been here at this company? Where are you from? All that. It gives, then it's like Jules said, you can just text your buddy or your pal. That's number 1. Number 2, understanding the culture, the norms, and the values of the organization. That, again, is a little bit time consuming, but it will help you to go a long way. Then when you say, I need help or I need to work with you, you already have an understanding. Number 3, set clear expectations and assume nothing. Like, that's the one that I've really had to work on, is assuming nothing, because it's easy to assume. Now, this is within organization, but the billing department, I always seem to have problems with billing departments, and there's a different culture there. And so taking the time to understand the culture, but then saying, hey, I represent the client and I need your help. And so really being clear about your expectations, turning it into a team effort. Again, back to Sam, your thing about I needing help. Like, I need help from you to help them.
Yep.
Help me, help you, help them, help me, help them. The 5th is expect that you're going to need to solve problems, because in life, there are problems. And in working across organizations, there's going to be problems. I have noticed that each organization has their own rules, their own norms, and those can often be a problem.
Yep.
And then Jacob, as you said, for the 6th way to do it is to read Conversations, how to manage your business relationships one conversation at a time.
That's great.
Solid 6.
Number 6. So we're going to move to the final portion of today's episode, what I like to refer to as parting shots, closing statements. And we always start with our guests to find out what they'd like to say in order to wrap things up. Sam.
Oh, thank you. Listen to you go through those 5, now 6 points. There's a quote that I've been actually, have you guys seen the show Ted Lasso? It's a great show. American football coach gets hired as a English Premier League soccer coach, and Jason Sudeikis is the coach, and so it's just hilarious. But he's able to succeed in this unlikeliest of scenario because of his just humility and ability to build empathy with his team, and knowing nothing about the sport, valuing them as human beings. So anyways, long backstory to a quote that he shares, which I think is a Walt Whitman quote originally, which is to be curious, not judgmental. And I think that shines through all 3 of you guys. And when I think about some of the best partners that I work with, they're just curious, when you're working with the billing department and it's not going right. Why is that? What is it? Who is the person I'm dealing with? What frustrations do they feel today? and just being curious to their unique scenario and not judgmental, I think goes a long way.
Jules, parting shot, closing statement.
Be curious, not judgmental. I really like that. Yeah. I would say again, just coming back to recognizing a organization as a bunch of people, not as a name, and figuring out who those people are, what motivates them, and how you can best work with them is like so important, because at the end of the day, they're probably going to be servicing you and doing you a lot of favors. So that humility, that gratitude, that constant appreciation is so important. And I think like genuinely cultivating that, like not just like saying thank you, but taking the time to actually recognize all the stuff that they do for you to help you is like huge. And then really in a genuine way, saying thank you for like a whole list of things that they've done for you recently is, I think, really big. And calling them your friends. Just assume everyone's your friend. It works for me. It may not work for you, but I don't know. I just assume, I default that we're friends. So
Thank you, my friend.
Wow.
Jacob, do you have any deep thoughts? Deep.
No parting shots. Keep smiling. Keep doing what you're doing. Stay humble. Be grateful. Everything will fall into place.
I love that you do that. You always say, nope, I have nothing to say.
no
And
parting
then you come out with great things.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not as long-winded, so I don't think it's a parting shot. It's just, but all right, man, parting shot. There you
Hey,
go.
we will agree to disagree there, my friend,
Thank you, pal.
my neighbor.
I'm sorry.
My parting shot for the day is I'm realizing in this conversation that we are our own organizations, like as people, and that really anytime we are talking with other people, we are dealing cross-organizationally. I think that the four of us, I'm going to pat us on the back, have come up with some really good concrete ideas and strategies for how to manage relationships one conversation at a time. Because that's what we're about. We're about helping people out there. And I wouldn't say these are new ideas, but what we've done is package them in this episode to really inspire people to be better in their conversations, one conversation at a time. Now, before we wrap up officially, I want to encourage our listeners to reach out to us so we can manage our relationship with you. We don't know who you are unless you tell us. But Sam, Jules, Jacob, thank you for being a part of this conversation about conversations.
Thank you.
shot.